Hi guys, today I'm back reviewing a Peugeot 308. Last time I filmed the GT line and that was spec'd with the biggest wheels, bunch of features and an automatic gearbox. This car has none of that, therefore it's completely different, and for that matter, let's begin this review. As for the model variant that I'm reviewing, it's the 2015 Peugeot 308 Active with the 1.6 litre diesel engine producing about 90 brake horsepower and 170 pounds-foot of torque. 0 to 62 times are around 11.3 seconds and it tops out at 113 miles per hour. So a bit of a slow coach, but it's a Peugeot, you can't be complaining about speed. In terms of price and running costs, Kazim, the owner of this car, recently just bought it from a dealer and he paid around £4 which I've got to say is a deal and proper cheap. It's also excellent on fuel because its 53 litre fuel tank produces about at least 40 miles per gallon. Kazim's been getting about 36, but he drives really rough, so you know, typical Kazim. All right, typical Kazim, if he's watching this, hello. And fuel economy, sorry, not fuel economy, car tax, that won't cost you a dime because it's completely free for the year. How good is that? You get a total of 3 engine choices in the Peugeot 308, a 1.2, 1.6 and a 2 litre engine, all of which are very slow and produce less than 205 horsepower. But the blue HDI diesel engine does have something to brag about, as it's a 3-stage cleansing process that specifically targets pollutants of diesel combustion, removing about 90% of hydrocarbons, so it's pretty healthy for the environment. Moving on to the technical specifications of the 308, and this car has a length of 4.3 meters and a width of 2 meters. As for the weight, it weighs about 1.3 tons. How does this stack up against the Ford Focus, the most common car in the UK? Well, it's only 0.1 of a meter shorter in length than the Ford Focus, so it's pretty much exactly the same size. If 0.1 of a meter matters to you, then here is your car. Next up, boot space. And first of all, let's open it up if we can. There we go. It's quite heavy. And there you go, you can see it's quite big. And I found out on Peugeot's website, on the brochure, it provides 2 illustrations of the boot space. You've got about 470 litres from the parcel shelf down, about 500 litres of space altogether with the rear seats up. And it also provides an illustration of the rear seats down, 1,300 litres of space to play with, which is plentiful. Now let's hop over into the rear seats, and I'm going to provide a live illustration for you guys of me getting the back of this interior because there's just so much room, lads. There's literally a ton of room in the back of this car. It's just chill. You got storage, electric windows, grab handles, and that's all you need. There's no armrest, but sod the armrest. The only awkward thing I find in the back of this car is the fact that the rear light is a bit of a reach away, but that's about it. Rest of it is chill. Next up, we move over to the interior of the Peugeot 308, and I have mentioned it in my other 308 review, but I do love the uncluttered look this car has in this whole area. There isn't 50 million buttons dotted around there everywhere you see. It's just nice and simple. Keep it simple. That's all Peugeot needed to do, and they smashed it out the park. But that does mean the climate controls are implemented into the infotainment system, and it is a bit of a pain to operate. That being said, everything is pretty much controlled through this 9.7-inch infotainment system, which leads me on to another issue, and that is the fact that the menus, or well, only the climate controls are very delayed. It takes you about a second to actually change a temperature. I think selecting or switching through menus is pretty quick, but the climate control settings are very slow for 2023 standards. It's a bit of a first world problem, let's be honest. Compared to the Peugeot 208 I used to own, this car seems to have bigger dials to accommodate the extra power, and in general the interior is much better than the 208 interior, I've got to say. And in terms of wear and tear, given this car has now passed 100,000 miles, the interior is absolutely spotless. I cannot find anything. The steering wheel, the gear knob, there's nothing wrong with any bit of this car. Apart from the DRL has popped out the front bumper. That's about it. Anyway, I think we've spoken enough. Let's go for a drive. So going for a drive in the Peugeot 308 Active. First off, I gotta give a shout out to Kazim for lending me his car so I could do this review. I've had plenty of his cars on my channel, including a Alfa Giulietta, which is my personal favorite one of his cars, which now is sold, unfortunately. Anyway, I need to mention, a lot of you guys do ask how I get insured on these cars. I do use a short-term insurance provider called Cover. I will leave the link to their website in the description box below. Make sure to check them out. and if you ever need to get insurance on your mate's car, you can do through that link below. But back to the Peugeot 308. How do I find it? Have I missed it since I last drove the GT line back 2 years ago now? I don't know. I definitely prefer the manual over the automatic gearbox. I think having the automatic gearbox really does emphasize how slow this car is. The manual gearbox, there's a little bit more feel, and the gear knob is really nice. So yeah, go for a manual if you are going for a 308. Kazim did pick this car up for an absolute steal though, like £4,000 is a bargain. And next week I'm reviewing another one of his cars that he picked up for even cheaper than this. And that car, I don't know how he managed to buy it for that cheap. You know what the secret is? Going on Facebook Marketplace and all the other selling websites apart from Auto Trader, because I feel like prices on Auto Trader are quite inflated. Do you know what I've got to say? This 1.6 litre engine, diesel engine, is very talky. Yeah, goes. There is nothing after 3,500 RPM though. It doesn't go anywhere. So you got to shift early to make use of these gears. Such a quiet engine, you can't even hear it. Got a massive pet peeve with this car, and that is the seatbelt noise when you've not fastened it. Have you heard it? It is horrendous. In fact, let me just pop some on the screen right now, and I'll let you. I definitely won't take my seatbelt off, but just take a listen to this. What on earth is that? Anyway guys, what I'm going to do now is switch over to point of view so you guys get a feel of what it's like to drive this car, because it's quite interesting, as this is not like a regular setup. You've got your dials really high up and your steering wheel really low down, so it's quite awkward, and I'll show you what I mean. So here we are guys, point of view in the Peugeot 308. What do you think? Do you like it? You can see how awkward the position is with the steering wheel and the dials up there, but you get used to it. What about materials? Let's have a look. Yeah, nice squidgy plastics here. Nice squidgy plastics. Look at that. This is great material. Yeah, it's not cheap stuff. There is some creaking down here. Oh, no. Let's not do that. In my Peugeot 208 I used to own, which I didn't do a review on, I should have. God, it was horrendous. That is the worst car I've ever owned in the history of my life. I do like the steering controls in this car. Quite easy to use. Although, if you do have fat thumbs, you are definitely not going to be able to mute your volume through the steering wheel, because you have to kind of press it in like that. One feature that I did make use of in my Peugeot 208 was the limiting feature. So you've actually got cruise control and speed limiter in this car. I find that feature so useful, especially in average speed limit zones. Just whack it to 53 or whatever, 55, and put your foot down. It won't go past that speed limit. And so that's the in-depth tour and review on the 2015 Peugeot 308. I've got to say, this car has proven me otherwise completely, because I thought I was going to hate it. I hated my Peugeot 208 when I owned it because it was crap to drive, crap steering, but this car, it's completely different. The 308 is a completely different car, and for £4 grand, it's an absolute steal. It's a bargain. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.